Welcome back to The Thermostat with Jason Barger. If you're currently on a commute, a walk, or just a micro break in your day, glad you're making time to step back, to think, and to reflect on the next steps on your journey. I've never been more convinced. The best leaders and team cultures in the world are the ones that make time to step back and calibrate their thermostat. I hope today's conversation leaves you feeling grounded and inspired. Now let's dive into today's topic to engage our minds and hearts in order to authentically lead and create compelling cultures wherever we are in the world. Today's podcast chat was recorded back in April during the height of isolation and quarantine due to COVID-19. I hope you enjoyed this fun quarantine chat with Bobby Carpenter. All right. Welcome back. Wherever you are listening to this right now, welcome back to another quarantine chat. I am excited to be welcoming in today's chat with Bobby Carpenter. Anybody out there that knows Bobby, Buckeye football star, former number one, first round draft pick of the Dallas Cowboys, local radio sensation star with Anthony Rothman. Also a father, a husband, a 6-egg omelet eater. Anytime we've gotten together in the last couple of years for breakfast, sit down and this guy orders huge omelets. Bobby, great to see you and chat with you while we're here in quarantine.
Pleasure, Jason. Thanks for inviting me. Give me something to do, man, instead of just staring at the walls all day.
No doubt, buddy. How are you? How's the family? How are you personally and I guess professionally also navigating your way through this time of quarantine and isolation, which, of course, when I start out these conversations every time, obviously our thoughts and prayers are with anybody who's out there who's struggling, people that are actually on the front lines that are serving, doing all the things right now that are hard for all of us to imagine. And the whole purpose of these chats is spread a little positivity, a little care, a little mojo, a little positive love out there in the world. But how are you doing personally, professionally navigating through this?
It's been, 7-8 weeks now that we've been through this quarantine. So I was traveling a ton with ESPN during football season and then, through the Super Bowl, and then supposed to still be going back to New York leading up to the NFL draft, to go to Vegas for the draft. On top of that, I was doing my local radio show, and then I teach a private equity class, a couple sections of that over at Ohio State. And so these last 7 weeks were supposed to be the busiest 7 weeks, I guess, of this first half of the year for me. And then all of a sudden, breaks get put on, don't have to travel anymore. I did 3 classes in person before Ohio State shut everything down, and then we started doing virtually. So, I think as far as the Zoom setup and everything, this is sold hat for me. Cranking out some classes and posting them up, and then I do my local radio show. So everything's been going pretty well. It's very different, very unique. Not flying to New York. I wake up, do a conference call, at 6 o'clock, and then set everything up in my office to get up and stuff in the morning, and then try to get, that's usually once or twice a week, and try to find a time to get, some exercise, some working out in a modified form, with some of the stuff I have around the house. And, I've got a garage I can go to, get some lifting in there, a lot of running on the concrete, which is destroying my back. And then afternoon radio. And during that whole time, I try to help as much as I can, which is very, very little, with my lovely wife, who's trying to help our 3 oldest kids, 4th, 3rd, and kindergarten, navigate the whole distance learning process, which sounds great in theory, but it can be a lot more difficult for young children. So there's been a lot going on. It's been very exciting as far as that, just on top of each other. I was planning on being gone a lot, so I've got to see a whole lot more of my family, and that's pros and cons. I mean, as far as just being around and everybody being around all day. The thing they don't tell you, Jason, when everybody wants to work from home is, what if you had to work from home, but you never really got to leave? And on top of that, your kids and everybody was there all day as well. That's the one fly in the ointment that I don't think anybody fully anticipated.
No doubt. I mean, what you're describing, which of course not everybody out there listening is hosting a radio show and on ESPN and, doing all the things that you just named, but everybody right now in the world is they're normal routines and their workload and navigating school life with their kids online, and then whatever it is that how they're trying to work remotely, and then, oh, by the way, trying to actually have a family, and they've got more time, but yet they've got more things they're juggling. So everything you're describing is what everyone in the world right now is trying to wrap our heads around. How do we handle and navigate our way, I think, through this time, these strange times of quarantine isolation? I know working out is you're always working out. I feel like you've always got something that you're posting or something, the workout that you're doing. I know that that's an important part, but that's not just, my guess is, at least some of the conversations we've had, is that that's also a part of how you navigate your way through life every day. And I'm interested in just the connection that you see to that, of your mindset for your body, the way that you're able to then approach a day, and how that helps you in kind of the connection, mind, body, spirit, how you enter the world every day.
Yeah, it's interesting because I started out with this stuff, and I say this stuff like working out. It's something that, as a kid, I really didn't necessarily enjoy it all that much. You start to see gains. And then it became, as I got older, like a place and an area for me to have like a little bit of solitude and solace. And it was therapeutic and like mentally relaxing for me. Like, it's exhilarating and draining, but I always like to do it in the morning. And we used to have, meeting with Coach Tress, we would have our quiet time in the morning. And one of the quotes that he always put up is, the first hour is the rudder of the day. And so I usually would like to get up like 5:30, go work out, try to get back and take my kids to school. And then I'd like shower and start my day. And like, I could think about what I needed to do for that day. I'd work out and like strain my body, strain my mind. And then it would give you like some peace, be able to relax and like, all right, I got that accomplished. Now I can go move forward. And so it's been a little different because I'm not going to do that and wake up and do that at my house. I've got my wife and kids, they're sleeping. It'd just be kind of noisy and try not to disrupt everybody. So it's been a little bit different routine for me doing it later in the day, but it's still that one chance to kind of, the physical exertion allows my mind to kind of relax, calm down. And it's the one thing that it kind of puts me at peace and at ease. And people kind of think that it's crazy, but it's, I don't know. There's people that paint, people that run, like people that like to play golf. Like, those things are all good. But for me, it was always kind of, some form of, physical exertion has always been very relaxing and therapeutic for me mentally.
Yeah. And probably a space where not only you have that solace, but you're also exerting yourself. You're also letting out energy and gaining energy. It's probably a time where you're, whether you know it or not, you are collecting those thoughts. And the way I think about it, I mean, my morning routine, I think about, it's what sets me up for the day. It helps me kind of, in my language, kind of calibrate my thermostat to, oh, wait, hold on. Let me make sure that the way that I'm entering this, the mindset that I'm bringing to everything I do, is it who I am hoping to be in the world? Not perfectly, but who am I hoping to be in the world every single day? And yet it takes intentionality to actually do that. And therefore, when things curveballs get thrown at me, or we have to adapt to changing routines and schedules, that's at least something that I can hold on to that allows me to navigate my way through that maybe more gracefully than if I wasn't.
No, you're absolutely right. It's like the one constant that you've always had, and that's travel. Kind of throws a wrench in that. Quarantine kind of throws a wrench in that. I've been running a lot on the road, which has just been destroying my back, day by day with pounding on the concrete, as opposed to like a track or a
I can't do that anymore, man. It kills me, man. My joints, the pounding, it just, I don't know, man.
It's rough.
I'm built for speed or something. I don't know.
Well, and I enjoy sprinting and doing like the interval stuff. As far as just getting out doing long runs, it's not great. But one of the nice things is we try to incorporate the kids. They're here, and so we try to get some physical activity. There's no practices. There's nothing going on. I said quarantine, like coronavirus, might not necessarily like hurt everybody, but the sedentary lifestyle and the eating and the lack of mobility, like you might see diabetes spike, all these different heart disease things, because still aren't moving as much as they were. So today I try to incorporate my kids. It's a half a mile around one of our blocks, so it's like, all right, let's run two of these guys. Yeah. We'll make it a little bit of a race, and that'll be like our physical activity. It kind of calms them down a little bit, but without practice, like you take for granted all of the activity that your kids have, and now it's just, okay, you're going to sit there and stare at the iPad all day. So we're trying to do it as a family a little bit and try to incorporate some of that as well.
Yeah, no doubt. The other thing is, I'm actively engaged with teams and companies and organizations all over the place, and certainly now the curveballs that have been thrown into that realm of how are they connecting with their people, and how are they co-creating this culture that they're trying and getting a hold of their business or whatever it is that they're doing, keeping their people aligned, developing their people and developing their culture as they move through these unknown times and uncertainty and all that. They are having to be really intentional about that. I'm interested in, from the perspective of, you obviously with your job at ESPN, being close to Ohio State, certainly your experience with Coach Tressel and the Cowboys and the Patriots over the years. What are players and coaches right now in this time of quarantine isolation? The offseason is oftentimes the time where you're developing people and you're building those relationships, and oftentimes building that culture and setting that foundation for the season, for the culture. What are you seeing teams doing? Are there creative things that are being done right now? Because it's about me. I just think that's huge. That's everything.
Yeah. So the off season, you don't win any games in the off season, but the old adage is you can certainly lose them. And so this is the off season for really any sport, is for personal development, but then also for team development, because that's when your identity is formed. Yeah. Of, who's kind of, fill into what role, how people are developing these interpersonal relationships that you're going to have. And on these larger teams, like for football, for instance, you have 53 guys, like every person has 52 different relationships. And so you start, extrapolating that, but, to every single person, there's so many different relationships that need to be forged, that need to be bonded. And so it's tougher to do that when you're obviously not with them. Now, that being said, thankfully that we've got these wonderful, digital cameras, we've got the high-speed internet, and so people are more connected, I guess, or have the ability to connect now more than ever. But it takes work, and it's easy to just sit down and get into your hole and get into a rut and say, this is kind of what I'm doing, and I'm, doing what I want to do, as opposed to reaching out and trying to foster some sort of community, some sort of team-building relationships, where even that might be. One of the things John Tortorella, who's the Blue Jackets coach, who we have on our show every Wednesday, like he started having these quizzes, and like there's races to see who can get them done first. And, he has these unbelievable conditioning tests that are historic, and everybody always talks about them. They're legendary. And so whoever gets it done first can get like 2 laps knocked off of their conditioning, and they're able to then give that to someone else on the team. Like it's a zero-sum game where take 2 off me, give 2 to someone else. So you make it competitive. Guys go back and forth with it. And so that's the best way to kind of foster that community, because we're such a species that crave interactions, and you don't realize it until it's been completely taken away. And so, my dad's a high school football coach. They have, their Zoom, coaches meetings. And if that's 10, 12 guys sitting around and, talking a little bit, and maybe it's like kind of a happy hour-ish theme as well, but it's just the community, the storytelling, and there's some work being done too, but it's just understanding the people that are around you, because when you invest in the people around you and they invest into you, you're going to have a better experience with them. You're going to have a better feeling with them, and you're going to do your job better because of how much you care about those people. Yeah, no doubt. Culture is co-created, and we all share in the creation of that. And every single person in the ecosystem of a team or an organization, by the way they think, act, and interact, and those shared experiences that you're talking about, that's what shapes that culture. So in this time when we're supposed to be sheltering in place or social distancing, that shared experience, teams and organizations are having to get creative about how do we then keep that shared experience and continue to help each other develop and build those relationships. And I was just speaking about this with a company the other day that was asking about what did I see that was coming out of this, or what is being revealed to us during this time. And one of the things I talked to them about is this idea that it's challenging all of us to have this forced innovation. It's challenging all of us to figure out that there's new ways that we have to connect, and we have to come up with those ideas. Unfortunately, we have technology now to be able to do this, but it's challenging all of us to find new habits, new ways of thinking, to see things slightly differently, but then have to adjust the way we've always done it. And then the other thing that it's revealing to us is exactly what you just said, and that is that we crave connection. And in fact, and what I've been sharing lately is that there's power in congregation. And so
these teams, even if they're trying to do it as a distance, which we have to get creative to do and to keep those touch points and build those relationships and find that shared experience, but also hopefully there's a time in that not too distant future where there's going to be power in congregation for us to come back together and for teams to be around each other, because it's in those moments where we begin to shape the culture of, you're right, we don't win the game in the off season, but certainly sets the foundation for that. Would you agree?
Yeah, you talked about like the necessity being the mother of all invention. I think, that's a huge point here. Like, you have to do something. You're going to find a way to do it if the traditional valve has been cut off. And so that's a huge piece of this. But then also getting people out of their comfort zone. Like, I'm a person that is just marred in routine. Like, I cannot get out of it. When I get out of my routine, I get very uncomfortable. If, like, when I'm sick or if I'm tired, I was up late, I had something to do, like, I usually still get up and work out. And the days that I don't, I feel awful about it. Or if I try to do that after my show, or have to try to shift things around and juggle stuff because of meetings, like, I don't like it. It makes me feel bad. I never really seem to get settled during the day. And this has forced me to kind of reevaluate, okay, I have to find a new pattern. And sometimes you have to find new patterns on the fly, and you have to be able to kind of establish that, look at where you're at, step back and say, hey, here's the opportunities that I have. How can I rearrange this so that it fits me the best, knowing which kind of person I am, and kind of rearranging that to make it look somewhat like I had it before, even if all of the same things aren't available to me at this point in time. And so it's really been eye-opening for me, for my kids, for my wife, like for some of my friends that I've talked to and talked about, old coaches. I'm just trying to figure out, like, especially like in sports, because people do it, and it's the same way in business, Jason. Like,
no doubt,
people do things the same way because that's how they learned it, and because the person that they learned it from their boss. And like, why have we done it this way? Well, someone 45 years ago thought this would be the way to do it, and it worked pretty well. And there really weren't too many things wrong with it. But all of a sudden now, like, if you just strip that away and you begin to build from scratch, you can see that, there might actually be a better way to do it, or there might be multiple ways that we can kind of integrate in to make this thing more functioning.
Absolutely. No, I mean, I could sit here and I could tell stories and give examples of different companies and organizations where in the midst of those routines and those habits that all of us form, because we form them because they keep us comfortable. And also because we've had a level of success with them, right? So, I mean, you've been an athlete, you've been a successful athlete. Everything you've done from a young age, you've established those routines and patterns because also you were rewarded. And it helped you, navigate your way through the world. And oftentimes, as you know as well as anybody, sometimes when athletes retire and that structure is gone, that it's hard to navigate through that. And the same thing happens in businesses where we get these structures and these modes of operations and the quote unquote way we've always done it. And yet finally somebody in the room says, wait, why do we do it that way? And what if we thought about it slightly differently? And it's in these moments right now of ambiguity and unknown and uncertainty where we're all being challenged to ask those questions of, what are the routines and the habits that are non-negotiable? And what are the ones that maybe I need to be challenged to rethink?
Oh, absolutely. You're going to figure out like what your bedrock, your core principles are, and a lot of other things you can shed off or peel off. And it's forced me to kind of adapt a little bit my life. And what's interesting is, everybody in every company, every team, every family unit is going to that are highly different. And so the irony is, you and I are both married. I'm very structure oriented, and they always say like opposites attract. Like, I don't really know about that. And as you get older, you begin to realize it more and more. Like, my wife is wholly different than me. She can exist in a world where you just wake up and everything's on the fly every day. Yeah. And it drives me crazy because she doesn't schedule things out, or she does, but it's not the precise order that I like. And so that drives me nuts. Yeah. But however, she does a much better job in an environment like this than I can. And like, so you have to understand and realize, like, and I think people are starting to realize that there's different strengths of different people. You might perceive it to be a weakness in one area, but then put into another situation, that same perceived like weakness turns into a strength, and other people's strengths then can convert to weaknesses because their failure to adapt. And so that's one of the things that I've learned in this and watched, and I've kind of admired and scorned my wife for, like, all at the same time, because it drives me crazy where she could put her keys 8 different places every single day. And then when she needs to find them, it's always like scramble to go look for them. And she always finds them eventually. Whereas me, if I don't put them in the same spot, then I can't find them, it's literally like my brain is having an overload because I have no idea where else they could be. So it's just trying to like work in these different ways and understand the different mindsets of people is incredibly important.
Well, and that's every group of humans on the planet, right? That's every team for sure. And it reveals itself in marriage as well. But that's every group of humans on the planet is we all are wired slightly differently, and we all navigate our way through it, and we all see it slightly differently, and we all have different strengths and weaknesses. And so I guess the beauty of that when it does coexist is when we start to do what you're describing, which is how do we bring out the best and raise the level of our gifts and our strengths, that we are in an environment that brings out the best of us, and that we're able to then lift up the strengths and respond to the others that bring something to the table that we don't have. And that, my guess is, as I think about this kind of stuff all the time, and I know you do too, but to step back and to look at the most successful teams, that's what you see. You see groups of people that aren't all the same, but have come together and they have a shared vision and a shared value system, but yet different gifts that they bring to the table.
No, it's absolutely the truth. And I don't know if this would be the right conjugation, homogeneous populations. Like that sounds great where it's one size fits all. But the beauty is in America is the diversity that we have and understanding that. And so it's going to be diverse within, like you said, within family units. It's going to be diverse within teams. It's going to be diverse within different business structures. And so embracing other people's strengths and learning. And like right now, when you have time by yourself, and this is one thing I think that people probably are getting real scared, and you worry a little bit about the mental state of people, because when you're quiet and you're alone with your thoughts, there's a deep, dark, long look at introspection and like beginning to realize like how you operate as a person, and what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses, how have you just tried to gloss over and hide some of them, as opposed to maybe try to strengthen some of those weaker areas. And when you have all this time, hopefully you're not just binging out and watching every single thing on Netflix or Amazon or whatever it is. And, tell people, find a book to read, like to pick up, trying to learn a language, play a musical instrument. Like there's something, I played the piano growing up, and I've enjoyed, taking some time every couple of days to sit down for 25, 30 minutes. Like, all right, I'm going to work at this. I make my kids do it. My mom made me do it. And now I can pick it back up and kind of
Bobby Carpenter just tickling the ivory a little bit. I love it.
Yeah, it's not really a tickle. It's more like a rough scratch as far as my dexterity at this point in my life. But it's fun, and it just like, how can I improve myself with this free time? It's one of the things that I regret a little bit when I was playing in the NFL. My rookie year, you get done and like it's a whirlwind. In your first off season, so you relax and kind of take some time off, work out and everything. But I didn't really try to grow until probably like my fourth or fifth season in the off season. I was like, I've got all day, I can work out and I've got everything free. Then I finally started having kids, so that chewed up some of the time. But it's like studying things, internships, reading books, whatever it is, trying to just learn new things and gobble up information to try to better yourself when you have that free time. And so since you can't drive anywhere really, everybody's just, locked at home. Like you've got extra time. Like I guarantee you the average person's probably picked up at least an hour that they would normally spend in their car during the day, that you can now be more productive with that time. So like, don't just waste it sitting in front of the television. Like try to find a way to utilize it and make yourself better.
Yeah. And I think, there's studies and stuff that prove this, but even just the allowing ourselves to step back and to allow ourselves to quiet the noise and the incessant rush that we have every single day, and to allow ourselves to sit and then intentionally say, okay, what do I want to give my focus and my attention to? And to allow myself to then say, okay, well, what do I want to learn? What do I want to take in? What's the input that I'm going to, because we're so focused on the outputs so much of our lives that right now we have a built-in time that is discomfortable, for many people. It brings discomfort to the surface because we're used to running around and being so busy. But the reality is, when we step back, if we allow ourselves to intentionally sit in that space, then we also have the opportunity to say, okay, well, what do I want to give my attention to? And what do I want to learn? And what am I open to? And you're right. We have this gift of time that sometimes doesn't always feel like a gift, but it is.
Time is the most precious gift, Jason, that you can have. It is. I tell people this all the time. Anytime that I speak, I always try to weave it in somehow, because time is the most precious commodity in the world. It is the only commodity that cannot be bought, sold, or traded. It is perishable by the second. We do everything about everything that you do to try to create more time. People have, they'll pay people to watch their kids so you can go out for a date. You'll pay to have someone mow your grass. You have Uber so someone can drive you so you can work while you're doing this. You fly in an airplane and spend more money than it would be to drive so you can pick up time. Everything we do centers around trying to create that 25th hour in the day that doesn't exist. So when you have these spare hours over the course of your normal 24 that you wouldn't normally have, like it is such a blessing and it is such a gift, because whatever point in time, like you're never as young as you're going to be at this point in time. Like you're getting older by the second. So find a way to try to utilize that. And it's a scary proposition when you think about it and think that all the things that we try to do to try to create that extra time, and then so often we waste so much of the extra time that we've created. So find a way, like the intentionality, which you said, which is, I love that point, because if you're not intentional, you're just going to wander around. It's like leaving your house with nowhere to go. You'll just drive forever, and maybe you find something that's good, maybe you don't. But if you have at least some sort of endpoint, some sort of destination thing something you want to try to accomplish, like there'll be mile markers along the way that as you're traveling that road, you'll accomplish little victories, and you may not get all the way to where you want to be, but you'll be a heck of a lot further away than when you started.
No doubt. And I would even say that even outside of the mile markers you'll hit, the journey that you will go on, if you are intentionally going in a direction that you are actively choosing rather than just passively going, the journey itself and the process of going in that direction, there will be things revealed to you and to us that will add value and contribute to the vitality of your life.
I like that. Vitality of your life. That sounds energetic, inspirational. Like when I think of vitality, I think of someone like jumping in a cold pool, like in the summer. Like that's what it's so invigorating. It feels so wonderful to kind of like just like a shot of energy. And so that you're right on that, man. It's dead on, and I love to think about it like that.
Well, man, sooner rather than later, hopefully we will not be social distancing. Hopefully there will be a time and space in the near future where we will be able to, everybody will be able to go back. And it's actually, I've been saying this, it's not going back, it's going forward. We're going now forward into new habits and new patterns, but hopefully we'll be able to then be in the same space with each other. Hopefully you and I can grab another breakfast together. I love that. The first time we've been lucky to have a few breakfasts over the last couple of years together. And the very first one, I remember we sat down and they came and asked you what you wanted, and you ordered a 6-egg omelet after I had ordered like 2 eggs sunny side up. And I just felt like such a wuss, man. The 6-egg omelet is a strong order.
Well, it's a daily routine for me. Like I laugh, like I'll change up dinner. I eat just about the same thing for breakfast each and every day, unless we're on vacation. There's a lot of other options. And I don't know if you remember this. I canceled our last meeting. I think it was like right after the Super Bowl or right around that time.
Yeah.
We were supposed to have breakfast, and I reached out to you the day before. I didn't feel good. I've been traveling a ton. I traveled to New York a lot.
Yeah.
And I'm going to get an antibody test as soon as I can get one figured out. But like, you'd be glad that I didn't try to power had breakfast and come there, because I was hurting. Usually I'm like, I'll be fine. Get up, get a hot shower, get a little jog in, or shower in a hot jog or in the jog, and I'll feel good. But I was like, you know what? I'm beat. I sat late in bed, and it was probably the best move that I made was not going to see you and seeing other people at that point in time.
I'm grateful for that, and that's something that we can certainly reschedule. And there will be a time sooner, hopefully rather than later, that there will be power in congregation, and we can congregate and have a 6-egg omelet and dominate some breakfast foods together. Bobby, great to see you. Awesome to just get a few minutes to chat. Thanks for jumping on. I know you got all kinds of stuff going on, and love what you're doing with ESPN and on the radio, and then certainly everything else you're doing. So thanks for jumping in. Anybody out there listening, I hope you'll continue to chime in and keep following on the social media platforms at Jason V. Barger. Check that out. Everybody out there, stay safe, be well, And thanks for joining Bobby and I on a quarantine chat. Take care. During a unique time in the history of the world, I'm so glad that these quarantine chats have resonated with so many people. We'll be taking a short break and then be back to kick off a fantastic season 3 of the podcast starting on August 4th. So, in the meantime, I hope you'll listen to any old episodes that you haven't heard yet. I hope you'll please join us back for Season 3 kicking off on August 4th. Share with your friends, rate 5 stars, of course, if you're willing, and enjoy summer. Thank you for listening to today's podcast, and I hope the messages and questions stimulate positive change along your path. As always, if these messages resonate with you and add value to your life, I hope you'll help amplify them throughout the world. Please rate, comment, and share on whatever podcast or social media platform you're using. And share this podcast with the people in your life or work who should be part of these conversations. That way, this spirit does, in fact, spread. If these messages or developing leaders and culture would be helpful to your organization, or you have a question or comment about this podcast, please contact us at jasonvbarger.com. And remember, we all are ambassadors for the culture we want to create in our life and work. We have to own the vision we want to be a part of. The future of leadership is you, is me, is us. Be a thermostat.